In 1932, two brothers by the name of Carlos and Helio had the idea to try and create the single most dangerous family ever. A family that was bred for war.
Their goal was to create a clan of fighters. Carlos and Helio fathered 30 children with 8 different women. 21 of them were boys.
That Gracie kid's no joke though. Them motherfucker, that family.
They changed the world.
The world.
The Gracie family is the most important family in the history of martial arts.
But their journey was far from a smooth one, riddled with corruption, tragedy, and violence. This is the rise and fall of the biggest martial arts family, the Gracie family.
They had an art that was so outrageous, and it shows the size didn't matter. The fighting world has the utmost respect for the Gracie clan. There's no doubt about that.
Its essential nature is to allow the smaller, weaker person to prevail against the stronger and more aggressive. As such, it preaches technique and strategy over size and strength.
These modifications gave birth to what is now known as Gracie or Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
For decades, you and your family were having these no-rules fights.
I get gi before I get diapers.
In Brazil now, there's a lot of fights, because of lack of respect.
Correct.
People fight on the street much more often. And based on that kind of need, they develop a more effective self-defense style.
Fighting in the street helped me a lot to sharpen my senses on everything. Makes you more confident and more comfortable to fight in a ring.
Where's school in this? And are you leaving the compound to go to school? Are you homeschooled? Is there juice time with the Gracie boys?
I get any excuse to stay away from school and stay at the academy.
We didn't let school interfere with our education.
One of the greatest fights I ever had in my life was an old rivalry between me and Eugênio Tadeu. We fought. One of the best fights ever. It was one of the best because I beat the crap out of him through the whole fight. But I couldn't finish him. And suddenly I start getting hit by people from outside the cage. They start kicking me, and every time I had my head against the fence, they would kick me, they would punch me on the fence. But there was a couple guys that kept insulting me all the time. And then one of the moments that the fight broke and the ref pulled us apart, I see this guy sticking his head right inside the cage over the fence, cursing me. So I pretend I was looking to my opponent and I land a straight shot right between his nose. The moment that he fell down from the fence, my brother got him. The whole riot broke from there. It was like 400 people fighting at the same time. It was an unbelievable experience. How can I tell you?
The Gracies were famous in Brazil, but they wanted to bring their art to a global stage.
Horian created the UFC to prove that Gracie Jiu-Jitsu was the most efficient martial art in the world.
I specifically did not want a boxing-like ring because based on my experience, I've seen people get in a fight and then they start getting beat up, they slip between the ropes and get away. So to prevent that kind of thing, we needed something that would stop the guys from getting out. And we thought of a moat with alligators around, or sharks. We thought of all kinds of an electric fence.
You talk about an original event. If you want to know reasons, if you want to know why it's such an original event, look no further than this ring. It's not a ring at all. It's an octagon.
But eventually we settled for the octagon the way it is.
It was not about the event. It's not about the entertainment. It's not about the money. It was about a confrontation of styles. So the idea of putting jiu-jitsu in the #1 spot was the commitment we have.
And it's not like today you fight one-on-one, you have to fight 3 fights.
We'd fight all night long. There are no rules.
No gloves, no time limit, no weight division.
Your reward for winning a fight would be to come back 20 minutes later and fight again. At the end of the night, you can go to the hospital, or you go to the after party, or if you're tough enough, both.
Now Jorge and Gracie, who founded the UFC, had to decide who he wanted to represent the family and his martial arts school, showcasing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu to the rest of the world. He was able to narrow it down to 2 choices. It was either going to be Rickson Gracie or Royce Gracie.
Rickson was the champion of the family.
Oh, no doubt.
By far.
Even back then, Hoist came out in articles and said, my brother Rickson is 10 times better than me.
Always said that.
And he wasn't lying.
Yeah.
Hoist at the time, hadn't done much. Looks like a little boy, an angel,
You're just a big kid. Hoist did not have a checking account. He did not have a credit card. He lived above the garage with a fish, a piranha, 2 piranhas.
But Rickson, at that time, is training people out of Torrance. And then he opens up his own studio in West LA. Rorion went, whoop, you're not going to, the person that is going to be fighting in this is going to be representing my school. And that's how Hoist got it.
He couldn't control Rickson.
I'm fearless. I'm just feel like reborn.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. You're about to see something that you have never seen before. The Ultimate Fighting Challenge.
8 of the deadliest fighters in the world will meet in a no-holds-barred combat to determine who is the Ultimate Fighting Champion.
I'm embarrassed to admit this, but I was sure Hoist was going to get his head knocked off his body by that boxer.
Because they'd never seen it before. The boxer didn't even throw a punch.
Enter the ring is Ken Shamrock. I would say the strongest in the ring today.
This dude, I want to kill him. Next thing I know, I'm looking up at him as he's choking me unconscious.
That's the power of jiu-jitsu. There's the takedown. That's exactly what Hoist wants.
And the crowd is going
I hate to say it, but Gerard is in a lot of trouble.
This motherfucker used to come out with a robe on and lay down and kick your ass.
The first Ultimate Fighting Champion by defeating 3 opponents in one night. A man who once said, "I'm not part of the history, I am the history."
The whole world of martial arts just changed. Like they did it. They did it.
After UFC 5, the Gracies sold their stake and left the UFC. Due to time limits being added during a fight, they believed this turned it into more of a sport rather than a pure expression of martial arts.
You walked away as this grand champion because your brother didn't agree with the vision of where the UFC was now going.
Yes. And then a few years later, I went to fight in Japan.
At its apex, Pride Fighting Championships rivaled professional sports leagues here in North America. It was huge.
And the Gracies would dominate Pride the same way they had dominated the UFC.
And if you look at that family, all the fucking champions, Hoist, Rorion, Rickson, Henzo, Hyen, Hoyler,
hundreds of them.
Fucking crazy.
Yeah. But at the same time, a man by the name of Kazushi Sakuraba had also started making his way through the ranks in Pride.
Sakuraba, he looks absolutely not the part of being this badass fighter that he really is.
He came from the world of professional wrestling, and if you see him in action, win or lose, he always entertained.
デルマン選手が、日本、世界で言うんですかね、日本でドンキーコングっていうすごいジャンプ、ゲーム的に考えたらこれドンキーコング倒すのはマリオしかいねえやと思って、でその勝つつもりでマリオの格好をしました。
Part showman, part modern-day samurai.
こんなことやるのがダメなんですよね。
Here was an athlete who was 180 pounds, who was being fed legitimate monsters, guys who outweighed him up to 60 pounds.
Sakuraba has gone through just about every Brazilian that he's faced. And it was just a matter of time before he faced one of the famed Gracie family members.
Hoyler, we're talking about Hoyler Gracie. They say the best technician of the family.
None of the Gracies have lost in mixed martial art or no-holds-barred competition.
Sakuraba was probably one of the best fighters that Japan produced.
Now, he had beaten your brother, Hoyler. So when you fight, in that case, I would imagine you're bringing the whole Gracie group with you. You're doing this for Gracie Jiu-Jitsu.
Let's do it.
See, the thing is, he's not a striker. He's a submission fighter.
Yeah.
So that's the difference.
Yeah, he will set up his submissions with the strikes. That's notoriously what he's always done his whole career.
But Sakuraba's working on something.
He's got something up his sleeve. He's going to do something.
It cracked my shin and tear the ligaments.
The voice is just taking a beating now. He's taking a beating.
So I remember sitting down. I told my brother and my father, I can get up, but I can't walk. You tell me what to do. And they're like, time out, stop right there.
There's no.
He's throwing in the towel in.
Kazushi Sakuraba
He made him quit.
Let's give him a round of applause, guys.
Having beaten both Royler and Royce Gracie, it was now time to bring in the champion of the family, Rickson Gracie. Sakuraba had embarrassed the Gracie family enough, being a man that valued entertainment over martial arts, and yet was still able to beat two of the best jiu-jitsu fighters in the world, muddying the invincible image the Gracies had worked so hard to build.
Royce could beat everybody, but if at any reason, if they needed to bring in the big gun, it was going to be Rickson. Rickson could tap him left and right, and everybody was like, that doesn't even make sense. Royce is the ultimate fighting champion. He's the guy. But his brother would just run right through him. He would run right through everybody.
However, Rickson's son, Rockson, had recently left home to live in New York, where he had become increasingly distant from the family, eventually falling completely out of touch. This worried Rickson so much, he had to temporarily put off the fight with Sakuraba to go search for his son.
The Gracies could not stand the fact that he was beating them. Now, we're going to send Renzo in there to take you out.
This is what Renzo wanted. Renzo wanted to force Sakuraba to take him down. Renzo wants to be in the guard.
In my head, I was already celebrating. I was winning, I was ahead, and he had no chance of turning that around.
17 seconds before the end, with the fight too close to call, there was a sudden and dramatic conclusion.
That's what I thought, but he did.
Many people make excuses when they lose. I have only one. He was better than me tonight. Japanese version of the Gracie family.
He outsmarted the inventors of the sport, earning himself the nickname the Gracie Hunter.
The next Gracie stepping forward to test their art will be Renzo's younger brother, Ryan.
He's an exceptional fighter. Very good technique. And very good lucky man.
For us Gracie's family, fight is not just a fight. It's a duel for our pride and our life.
Do you have any regrets in terms of like your competition career that you didn't? Was there any particular fighters that you wish you had had an opportunity to fight?
The only fight I feel like was a missing was against Sakuraba. So he was still high level in terms of reputation, but unfortunately I lost my son. So I stay like a family guy, keeping my ex-wife, keep my kids strong enough.
My father was a fighter who had a very controversial life. There are many stories about the life my dad led. Some say he was a villain, a violent person who did no good.
The bad boy of the Gracie family, I am Gracie.
But there's a kid who knows different, who always looked up to him no matter what story he heard. On December 8, 2007, we celebrated my 6th birthday together. And 1 week later, what does that mean? That was what I asked myself when my mom told me my dad had died. I was traveling with her in a city near Rio at the time. We stopped at a gas station, and as soon as I came in, I looked at the TV and I saw my dad. It was the news coverage, but I thought it was a video call. And I remember looking at the TV and said, "Dad, hey, I'm here. And look at my dad, Mom." And she rushed in front of me to distract me, and she began to cry. I remember asking her, "Mom, why are you crying?" She said that he had passed away and that he was a medical warrior. I came into my grandma's house and I saw her crying. I went up to her and I asked, "Grandma, why are you crying?" I already know that my dad passed. In that moment, she looked at me and she knew I had no idea on what death meant. Days passed and he didn't show up for Christmas. When it was time for me to go to visit him, nobody took me to the airport. When Father's Day came around, he didn't show up. And day by day, I began to realize what death meant.
The rematch of legends, Gracie! Fighting out of the red corner, he is known as the Gracie Hunter, Kazushi Sakuraba! Gracie!